Like I said, I was the only adult in the room all of my life.
So it makes sense that you became an attorney, right?
It does, doesn't it?
Hello, gorgeous. Welcome to this week's episode of the Trauma Mommas. My name is Kelly Coffey. I am here with the saucy, spicy, and illustrious Sue Jones. Say hello, Sue Jones.
Hello, Kelly.
Hello, darling. You look beautiful. You had COVID-19. How the hell you feeling?
Good. I'm over it. I have a little bit of a residual tickle in my lungs, but I came out unscathed. I did not lose my sense of taste or smell. It was either a mild case or just the fact that I'm vaccinated. It wasn't as bad as I think some people have had it.
And did you successfully not pass it to your wife?
Yes, I did not pass it to her.
Oh, good. I
was
was going to be like, oh, no.
And she works at a hospital, so it's kind of amazing. She has not gotten it at all.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to hear it. We still don't have COVID over here, but our school district has decided in its infinite wisdom, that's air quotes on infinite wisdom, to keep the mask mandate probably until the end of the school year, which is a huge bummer, but not a surprise.
What about in town?
Most people are still wearing masks, but I am out there and smiling at people, and everybody who's not wearing a mask, I'm like making eye contact with them and being like, it's so nice to see your face. You look wonderful.
You know what? I did this workshop, Acropolo, this 5-day workshop, and the restrictions at Acropolo were everyone had to wear masks. But then on Friday, it was mask optional. When we were finally able to take off our masks, I literally did not recognize people. You don't realize how much of a person's face is below the eyes.
It's true. Well, like 2/3. So
exactly. They say the eyes are the window to the soul, but the nose and the mouth is the window to the face.
I want to see your face window. Show me your face window. What a strange moment we're living in. Yesterday was Saturday, and I took my oldest daughter out for lunch, and I was like, take your mask off. And she said, I don't want to take my mask off. Everybody was maskless because it's a restaurant. Everybody in my little town is vaccinated and boosted and safe and all of that stuff. And she said, I'm just more comfortable with my mask on. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, there is 100% going to be a whole slice of this population who is only going to be comfortable in masks. They will have developed an aversion to naked faces.
That's so sad.
There will be children who will be triggered through their whole lives by simply seeing someone's whole face in public. And it's bananas. And let's just hope that the trauma mamas are there 30 years from now to help them work through it. And on that note, I would like to introduce this week's guest. Her name is Carey. Carey, darling, would you unmute yourself and take just a couple seconds to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I live in the US in the South. I'm an attorney. I have been for about 25 years, and I have 3 kids, and then I have 4 dogs. I've been married to my husband now for 20 years this month.
And they've never had a fight.
And Carey, what do you need from the Trauma Mamas today? What's happening?
So my mother-in-law, she's 91. And we got there this week for vacation to check on her. And she was very gung-ho about finding an independent living center and asked me to help her. Being the problem solver I am, I got on the internet, and in an hour, I had 3 tours set up for the next day. But the next morning, we go to her house, and she's adamant about not going, that she's going to die in her house alone because she's comfortable. And I found myself reacting like my mother would have, I think. And it made me really uncomfortable.
How would your mother have reacted?
She would have told her to put on her big girl panties, shut the fuck up, and get into the center, and dropped her off and left her to die. So I flew home figuring that I was not the best person to have there. But then I feel really guilty about having left my husband there.
So there's a couple of things that I'm hearing. One is the practical issue of the fact that your mother-in-law wanted to go into assisted living. Everything seemed fine. And then boom, she changes her mind. Another issue that I heard from you was that you are feeling self-judgmental about the thoughts and feelings that came up for you when she changed her mind. The third one is that you feel guilty that your husband is still there and that you left. If you just kind of sit with those three distinct things that are also related, which one feels like the one that you most need the guidance with?
The second.
You reacting in a way that you're judging yourself for.
Right. When she said, I'm interested in doing this, I put on my professional help that people hire me for. Hey, I'll figure this out. I'll have it figured out in an hour. And I did. And then I'm really disturbed by my lack of compassion when she backtracked.
So let's table that focus for a minute and go back to that you did all of this stuff. You immediately put your life on pause. You took all of your expertise and the things that you value in yourself, problem solving, finding these places, setting up the tours. You did all of this stuff for her, expressly responding to her request. And then she turns around and says, I changed my mind.
Right.
That's the place to start. Do you feel that somewhere in your body?
I feel like it sits more in the, how dare you not do the logical thing?
So are you experiencing more of a feeling of anger?
I'd say, yeah. Frustration and anger with the desire to stay in a home where she's going to die alone. To me, it's just completely illogical.
Carey, you've probably listened to our podcast enough to know, and you definitely have worked with us in our Timbo groups and worked with Kelly privately enough to know that our knee-jerk reaction is to focus outward. I don't understand why she wants this. These are her thoughts, feelings, and actions, and they don't make sense to me. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do to change anything outside of yourself. What we can do is try to compassionately understand why you are reacting in a way that you're defining as uncompassionate. I think there's a place to dig down a little more. I would start with the question of, if she had never said, this is what I want, and if you had never sprung into action and put your life on hold and did everything to get her what she said she wanted, do you think you'd be having this same reaction?
Right. No, I don't think so, because I did exactly that. Sprung into action, put my 110% behind getting her a solution, because that's what I do, right? People pay me to do that. And it was great. If we had just shown up for a visit and it had not been for this reason, and that had not been the sole focus of her need at the moment that she said was her need, right? It probably would be easier.
Is there some aspect to it that is just anger that she would reject your very perfect solution? Like, you sprung into action, you did exactly what was asked of you, you did it well, and you did it expeditiously, and then it was rejected?
It's almost like incredulousness. It's just like, what? Everything I do is logical. When I see her acting from a complete emotional level, it just kind of makes me incredulous that she's rejecting the logical alternative.
You've mentioned it several times. This is what you get paid to do, right? This is where you are perfect. This is where you are in your power, solving problems like this. So someone hires you, that's in air quotes, you over deliver, and you do it fast and with a smile on your face. You don't hesitate. You get the job done. You get it done well. And then it's rejected.
That's exactly it. And it's rejected from an emotional base that I can't get my arms around. It feels selfish.
What Kelly's describing, which is, here's this thing that I feel really gives me a lot of value, this ability to solve problems, to really do for someone what they're asking me to do. I'm good at that. That is where I feel valuable and worthy. And then it's just dismissed. And I'm wondering if that's a familiar feeling from long ago.
The familiar feeling of that would be feeling a need and being ignored, or that need not being convenient. I grew up with a narcissistic mother. I'm still recovering from that. And you weren't allowed to have any needs or emotions that weren't her expectation in the moment. And if I opened my mouth, she'd hit me or slap me or grab me, so it always resulted in a negative.
I can't tell you your truth, but this is a place of exploration based on what you're telling me, right? You're telling me you had this mother where you were not able to ever have a need that served the young Carey, but it's possible that you figured out that the way to get your need for feeling loved and feeling connected is to do for your mother what she needed you to do or what she asked you to do. And if there's any situation like that,
Yes.
you're saying, yes, yes, yes. Little Carey is saying, I'm going to do for her what she needs. And then to have that dismissed or to feel that disconnection when you thought you had cracked the code, does that resonate with you at all?
It does. Now that you say that and put it that way, definitely. I was my mother's parent. I was my own parent from the time I was probably 4 or 5 years old. So I was the problem solver. Like I helped her leave my father. So my mother-in-law's rejection of the perfect plan, which by the way is a really fantastic plan for her, really probably hit that. And when it hit that, because it hits that, like you said, Sue, that need of love and belonging that is so primal in us, that it really caused me to react in a, I'm going to take off your head kind of way.
If you think back to your childhood and you think of that experience where in your mind, you're like, this is my moment. I'm going to help my mother divorce my dad. I'm showing up to solve this problem and be there for my mother. And then you still don't feel that sense of worthiness. Do you feel that in your body somewhere as you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like I can't breathe. Like I just can't get any air into my lungs almost. It's like it's strangling.
So to your body, that moment was profoundly dangerous. And to your mind, it was probably like, I thought I cracked the code. I thought I had this figured out. I don't understand. Every time you feel this sense of dismissal or rejection from your mom, the finger gets pointed inward. I'm a failure. I did something wrong. The strength of your reaction when you're talking about these memories with your mom, which is very appropriate, it feels very similar to the strength of your reaction to your mother-in-law. Like, I don't understand.
It does. Yeah, it does. I didn't connect those at all.
Carey, I wonder if you have, prior to now, ever had an occasion to really solve a problem for your mother-in-law, or if this is the first and biggest opportunity for you to do something like this for her.
First and biggest.
So this is your first and biggest opportunity to feel like you have earned that sense of love and connection by showing up with all of your strengths and solving all of the problems, and it's being rejected.
Right.
So that's huge. And I can see why that would hurt.
One of the things, Carey, that you said, when we started this conversation was that you were really judging yourself for not being compassionate. And I think it bears repeating that in the moments when you had that complete confusion when you were young and what you had expected, it's not what you got. That moment, that is a feeling of being completely broadsided as a child. This is not what I thought was going to happen, right? And so that is a moment where our bodies as young beings will respond with this survival response because it feels so profoundly life-threatening to feel those moments of disconnection with our mother. That system just keeps getting triggered over and over and over, so that by the time you were sitting there with your mother-in-law and she was saying, I don't think I want to go to this facility, the neurobiological reaction of your body is what was behind your inability to hear her. Because in that moment, when we're having this chronic stress response or this traumatic stress response, our ability to sit and consider and be rational, all of that flies out the window. And we are just in this moment of self-preservation. That's how the survival system works. So it's not that you weren't able to be compassionate. It's that your system was running in such a way that you weren't actually able to hear her perspective and understand her perspective because of what was going on in your body. The first step is going to be being able to access compassion for yourself and why that moment felt like that.
Now that I'm thinking about it with your insight, it really did feel like a giant trigger for me. And my trigger response was to double down, almost like a bully. So it was definitely probably a fight response that I saw in myself, which is, we've been working in Tempo since June of last year, and it has been profoundly helpful. I just can't thank you enough, Sue, for what you brought to my life. But in the healing, you wake up, from this 50-year numb and you don't know how to handle any kind of feelings like joy or anger. And I was so uncomfortable that I almost couldn't see straight.
As human beings, we have this discomfort, and then we immediately go up into our head and we want to figure it out. We want to psychoanalyze it. We want to get to the bottom of it. We want to figure out why and why is this happening and what is this connected to and all this stuff. And it's also okay and really helpful just to remind yourself, oh, there is a traumatic body memory coming into the present moment. And to be able to give yourself a little grace and a little space for you to get to the other side, because it's only when you get to the other side, think about you being tossed around in some waves and then spit out onto the shore. That's the other side. It's only when we get to the other side that we can actually make rational decisions and have rational conversations that are informed by the actual moment and not mixed in with traumas from our past.
That's exactly what happened to me yesterday. And then I just sat in it. I just sat in this turmoil of emotions and sadness and neediness for the last 24 hours, I guess. And I'm not to the other side yet, but I think that's exactly what's happening. And it's crazy uncomfortable.
What I have come to appreciate so much in all of Sue and I's work together is when I have one of those profound emotional reactions, like when I can't even hear what someone else is saying to me. I have enough practice at this point with the tools that we use to know that even if I have no idea what the root is or what's going on, I am definitely reacting to something far deeper and far more sunk into the marrow of my bones than whatever the hell is triggering it in the moment. Of course, your mother-in-law's reaction is going to trigger everything about how you learned to be valued and feel connected as a child. And of course, you'd have zero freaking capacity to intellectually realize that in the moment. Because as soon as she rejected it, a universe of physical memories came up and totally overwhelmed your system. When the vision goes red and the side blinders go up, there's no input coming in. Like you are in one of those moments. You are in a trauma response. It is happening. And you don't need to know why. You don't need to know what the root of it is, but you can practice developing that awareness and be with that experience, because that's what's called for in that moment. And that's where you can begin to access compassion for those huge, crazy reactions that we all have when we have trauma histories.
I wish I had had more presence of mind yesterday to realize what was going on so that I could have given me space. Instead, I turned to monkey brains, as you call it, Kelly. All of the typical monkey brains I go to because I was so uncomfortable.
Quick definition time. In the Pleasure Principles course, monkey brains are any food, substance, or behavior that we use to numb out and change the channel in our heads, specifically those that leave us feeling worse on the other side.
Right. And I felt worse overnight and felt desperate and just needy. And I'm never needy. But this is the first big trigger, like giant, like this, since we've been doing all of this.
I'm pretty sure you remember when you did the 5-day intensive in October, and it's also in my book, the picture of that spiral.
Yeah.
So the picture of the spiral is where the spiral is really tight on top. And then this is the process of healing, is going around this spiral, but the spiral starts to open up. The loops start to open up because healing is not linear. It doesn't look like a straight line. It's cyclical. So what at the top, it's your everyday normal. So you don't even know that there's any other way to feel. But because you've been doing this work for just about a year now, your spiral is opening. But if you remember, as the spiral gets more open, meaning our triggers are fewer and further between, they also at times get way more intense because our body.
That explains a lot. I forgot that.
Okay, this is your review, because your body knows that you have the capacity to handle more intense traumatic memories that have just been laying in wait. And here you are. I would like to encourage you to use different language. It's not a matter of presence of mind. The process of what we teach, it's awareness of your body sensations, acceptance that your body is telling you your life is in danger, and space. Well, you had the awareness, but you went right to self-judgment, resistance, numbing, you can have awareness, but if you don't have the acceptance piece with it, it's just going to keep that trauma feedback loop going. So the self-acceptance piece is critical, because if you don't have it, you'll just continue to stay in that feedback loop of stress and traumatic stress. And acceptance really just means recognizing that in that moment, your body is telling you that your life is in danger because it believes that you are heading into an area where you got profoundly hurt. The situation was similar enough that your body was like, uh-oh.
You talked about getting to the other side eventually of these giant triggers. Is self-acceptance that key?
It's all the key. Awareness, acceptance, and space. It's like a package deal. You can have the self-acceptance, but then if you're like, okay, when is this going to be over? That's not acceptance of the whole package. So it's not just self-acceptance, it's acceptance of what's happening. It's acceptance of that really horrible feeling sensation. And then the space piece is you use everything you've learned in Timbo, your breath, maybe movement, going on a walking meditation, talking to your body, talking to the young Carey, all of those things are in service of creating that space. You know when you're on the other side because you no longer feel those sensations in your body.
Okay, that helps me have a little bit of an agenda today.
But you're such a problem solver that you're probably going to be like, all right, I'm going to do this for 48 hours. And then this right.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Okay, so today I walk and I meditate, and then I meditate, and then I take a dog, and then
and by the time I lay my head on my pillow, it will all be behind me. I will be spat out onto the shore. I will be on the other side.
My original plan, though, was to go back to bed after I talked to you guys and just be in the dark. So, it's an improvement, I guess, to have a plan. You guys have really given me some insight, and I think I can now release some of the self-judgment about my reaction because I can understand it now.
Amen. I'm glad.
And that I think is a great first step.
Once you are aware that you're on the other side, once you have given it that space, then you can have a conversation with your mother-in-law that is not fueled by these feelings of anger or feeling dismissed or confusion. It will be a more pragmatic, rational conversation.
I left because I felt like I could not be productive in that conversation any longer. And I still think that was probably the right call.
It's okay to do that. It's okay to say, I'm not going to be helpful right now. I can tell you that. I'm going to step away. I'll come back when I feel a little more grounded. And then you can both talk this through with her. You can remind her that this was her choice and help her access why she was making that choice and help her recognize why she might be fearful now. She's like any other human being. She's going to have fear come up as well.
She's 91. And one of the big fears that finally came up yesterday was that, she doesn't have any teeth and she's worried about being bullied about her teeth. And she was bullied as a kid in high school. So she's having a primal reaction to this too. But it was interesting to see her almost frozen in space, in this decision because of the feelings that she was feeling of being rejected and bullied too.
See, and this is one of the most powerful gifts that we get when we do this work for ourselves, is we get to support other people. They don't even know they're being coached through their own traumatic sticking points. But once we have an intellectual understanding of what's happening for us, we can see it so easily in other people. Yeah. And we can show up in real, meaningful ways for everybody around us, which is just icing on the cake of this work that we do together. I love that you were there to give her that.
I find it really ironic that I could see it in her, but I didn't recognize what was going on to me.
That doesn't surprise me in the least.
It's difficult for us to access that self-compassion because it was such a matter of survival to figure out what we did wrong or what we were doing wrong and try to alter ourselves in whatever way we feel like we need to alter ourselves so we can feel that sense of worthiness and that sense of love. So in that moment when that old body memory came back that you really weren't even aware of, it makes sense that the first place you would go was self-judgment, because that's where we went when we were developing all of these survival strategies, which actually, by the way, served a really important purpose.
Mm-hmm. It kept me alive. That's for sure.
Exactly. You had to do that in order to survive, but that doesn't have to be a part of your life now because it's not a matter of survival. And in that moment with your mother-in-law, it was like little Carey came in and was like taking over when it's not an appropriate place for a child to be coming in and taking over. And that sounds like that was a lot of your life experience.
Like I said, I was the only adult in the room all of my life.
So it makes sense that you became an attorney. Right?
It does, doesn't it?
The ultimate problem solver, right?
And I like it because, like you said, I'm good at it.
You're damn good at it.
If clients don't listen, I can let it go. But when it's a relationship, it's very hard to not sit in that place of who I am when I'm good at it. Does that make sense?
This feels like an important realization because it probably plays out in your relationship with your husband and your relationship with your kids. Having a big feeling when you feel that you've got everything figured out for them, like you've got the problem solved for them, and they don't want your solution.
Oh yeah, I have said for many years that if my daughter would just follow the business plan I have for her, she'd be great. she would have all of these things together, you know.
God damn it, our kids having their own free will.
Right.
How
And
dare they?
and in this healing process, that's hard to also grapple with too, is finding a way to respect their space when I feel like I know the right way. And so letting go of that has been difficult.
It comes down to giving the people in our lives the dignity to live their own lives, to make their own mistakes, to explore in meaningful, often very uncomfortable ways so that they actually learn and internalize things. And I know, Carey, that you would make the best plans and decisions for everyone all the time. I kind of want to hand my life over to you and just be like, just tell me what to do, sensei. But like, that's not an authentic life. That's not a real life. That's a puppet master and a puppet, you know? So learning to be able to step back and breathe and notice when we're reacting from this crazy emotional place, because being in control and in charge and solving all the problems is the only path that we know to love. But like, that's not what's happening right now. And the people around us are allowed to make their own decisions and allowed to fuck up in their own ways. Now, of course, it's much heavier when the person who is making a stupid decision is someone who you and your husband are ultimately responsible for. And it's going to complicate your life if she doesn't make the logical decision. But just in the day to day, we got to let our kids figure it out. We got to let them stumble. We got to let them cry. Like,
and our parents too, right?
Something, Carey, that I want to give you to take with you from here is that giving what you think is your best advice is not a negative attribute. You care and you're sharing your wisdom with the people you love. But whether they take your advice or not is connected with your worth, that's where it creates suffering for you. And so when you're giving anybody that you love your wisdom, think of it as putting a pebble in their shoe, and that they're not going to immediately react or respond to what you're sharing with them. But you can hold out a sense of faith that at some point they're going to be like, what the heck is that thing in my shoe? And take off the shoe and take a look at it. And that might not be for a few years, might not be for 10 years. But if you can think about what you're offering as that, instead of here's what I'm offering, and if you don't take it, then that means something about me.
Disconnect wisdom and acceptance as a measure of self-worth.
Put it on a t-shirt.
I think that'd be great. I think that's exactly why I got so uncomfortable yesterday.
As detectives, Kelly and I think we have gotten a little bit to the root of things here.
Absolutely.
I know you had several things that we could have talked about today, but I think that one is going to make a difference in your life in all directions in your relationships.
I think it will. I very much thank you guys for your insight and getting to have this one-on-one time with both of you together. It's awesome. Thank you. And I love the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I look forward to hearing how it goes.
Yeah. Thank you, Carey, for being with us today. Oh, Sue. So before I forget, I just want to mention one thing. You were talking about the trauma healing being that spiral that starts woven real tight at the top, and then it sort of loosens and loosens and loosens. But as we go through the process, when a traumatic memory comes up, it can be 10 times more intense than what we were accustomed to dealing with at the beginning of the healing process. I just want to say that those intense memories, they're sometimes not a snapshot, but are experienced simply as a body sensation. You may discover that as you go through the healing process and time unfolds and the layers peel away, it can suddenly be off the charts compared to what you've ever experienced before, but not necessarily be attached to an acute memory.
True conscious memory. Yep.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I just want to mention that so that people don't think that they're necessarily going to be presented with all these new and novel memories. Healing doesn't necessarily happen in that way for everybody.
Yeah. Oh man, I was having a really hard time yesterday, and I just said to my wife, I need to be reminded too. I need someone in my life that is like, this is a memory in your body. This is disproportionate to the moment, because I'm the one that teaches this stuff. I feel like everybody in my life is like, she doesn't need me to tell her this stuff. She doesn't need to be reminded. But just like Carey was talking about, when you're in that moment, it's so hard. And I just want to be able to feel like someone's got me, you know what I mean? And I do feel like my wife 9 times out of 10 is the person that's like, I got you. But when it has to do with like a relational thing,
she can't be your person to be like, you're reacting from your trauma place when you guys are in your own arguments.
Right. Or we're both kind of triggered. So maybe we need to make a little app.
Definitely not a bad idea. And until we have an app, you can just shoot me a text. We could have it won't be a safe word because it's not like we're going to be doing kink stuff. Just text me the word and I know that you're triggered. And then I can be like, you're having a body response of a traumatic experience from the past. It's not a reflection of what's happening in the moment. Let's just breathe.
Can it be Babalu?
It can be whatever you want. Why Babalu?
Maybe you're not old enough to remember watching the Lucille Ball show.
I remember I Love Lucy.
Desi Arnaz, when he plays his bongos, he's like, Babalu.
Okay, sure. I'm in on that.
First thing that came to my head, Babalu.
Okay, Babalu. Yes.
By the way, why didn't we call Carey when we had intellectual property questions about the Trauma Mommas name and logo?
Because we're a work in progress, and part of our charm is that we're imperfect almost to a fault. All right, darling. It's so good to be with you.
Great guest, great episode. I think it's going to resonate with many.
I agree.
All right.
All right, everyone. Until we talk at you again, please visit the website, thetraumamommas.com. Throw your name on the wait list for one of Sue and I's upcoming Timbo groups. That's Trauma Informed Mind Body. Hit the page to also order Sue's book, There Is Nothing to Fix, to learn more about that trauma healing spiral and how all of that unfolds. And throw your name on the wait list for my Pleasure Principles course, helping women who are pre-programmed to self-destruct to leverage their desire for pleasure and service to their own strength and health instead of their early demise. What's up? We'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.
Bye.